this is Justin, aka JP Kuta, and I'll be sharing with you the creation process of my Kuta Kustom II, a modded custom Les Paul Jr. I bought for under $90. Before I can go into the Kuta Kustom II, I first need to start the story off with the original Kuta Kustom. In the early years of my guitar journey, I came across super shredders such as Steve Vai, Yngwie Malmsteen, and Mr. Joe Satriani, to name a few. These guys inspired me to get interested in super strat guitars, especially taking notice of the whammy bar tricks that they like to perform on these instruments. I was in high school at the time, and at some point threw together a concept drawing of the Kuta Kustom I using Google Images and Microsoft Paint. Sourcing the neck from my OG Lion Strat, I began ordering parts online. Probably around 16 at the time with the minimum wage job cooking pizzas, so the parts I was able to get were definitely budget. Notable parts included a Paulownia body blank, pool routed, that I modified, some ESP pickups I got for free from a friend, and then the neck again off the legendary Lion Strat, and some gold knockoff Floyd Rose hardware from Amazon. During the first iteration of the Kuta Kustom I learned that the soft Paulownia body wasn't quite strong enough to withstand the pressures of the floating tremolo points that the Floyd Rose uses. The bridge posts tore through the body about half an inch, ruining the intonation, and there were also some wiring issues with this guitar. The original Kuta Kustom was broken down into various parts over the years until I finally started rebuilding it. Upon removing the finish and filling the pickup selector cavity, I decided the way I wired it was ridiculous. I realized that this guitar was designed in a time I was all about virtuoso guitarists with super strats. Although I still love this type of music, I found myself longing for the complete opposite of a super strat in terms of complexity of an electric guitar. I decided that I wanted to build a single pickup electric guitar with minimum wiring and a fixed bridge. I decided that I wanted to explore Les Paul Jr. since I loved the Les Paul shape and the Jr. fit my requirement of a single pickup. Instead of looking at kits, I chose to buy an old used Epiphone model from Guitar Center for under $90. Here's the journey of turning that guitar into what is now the Kuta Kustom II. The first steps are disassembling the guitar. This is where it is great that the guitar has a bolt-on neck and comes off the body, making refinishing much easier. Hardware comes out of both the body and the neck. Next, I wanted to remove the finish. Originally, I googled the Epiphone Les Paul clear coat and found results saying it was polyurethane. Googled poly stripper and found Stitchy Strip and gave that a try. I coated the body and let the stripper sit overnight. Upon trying to scrape the finish after the stripper had sat, I found it barely did anything. Instead of investing in another stripper, I decided to remove the original finish using a heat gun and a scraping tool. This took many hours. The finish would scrape off in layers. A thin coat of clear coat first, then some black, and finally another dirty clear coat. The random scraping resulted in a lot of unique characteristics in the final finish of the guitar, especially on the edges of the body. Using the heat gun, I also ended up darkening random spots of the wood grain in the process. I ended up using this method on the neck as well, and the head of the guitar. With the original finish removed, before any attempt at refinishing, I decided to give this guitar a slight belly cut. I marked out the general line of the cut I wanted to attempt, and then just followed the curve of the body with the file. I did the same on the back of the horn as well. To be honest, I think that the horn cutaway is more practical on the front of the guitar, like how ESP LTD Les Pauls have. But I do like how the cutaway looks with the different wood colors. If I were to do another guitar, I would have extended the belly cut deeper as well. But this was my first attempt and I didn't want to take too much wood away. It still plays more comfortable with a small cutaway than no cutaway in my opinion. Now, buying a random Epiphone, I had no idea what the wood grain would look like before stripping the guitar. Either way, I had originally decided to attempt some sort of lemon burst by dyeing the wood grain with brown and yellow dyes. I tried out some RIT fabric dye, first testing on scrap wood. The dye worked out better on the scrap wood than I'd ever expected. When applying the brown tint to the Les Paul body, I noticed that it only took where the top layer of plywood had been stripped off. In order to get the guitar to stain, I would need to take off the top layer of wood all over the body. Deciding that the multiple layers of grain was interesting enough, I decided to just clear coat the top to get a natural finish with oil-based wipe-on polyurethane. The oil-based nature of this finish is said to yellow over time, which I'm hoping to see eventually. I used 3 coats of the polyurethane on this guitar. Between each coat, I would sand with 800 grit sandpaper and clean off the sawdust with t-shirt material and mineral spirits. When I would apply the finish, I would let it sit on the guitar for an entire day between coats. I treated the neck the same way. I had kept the original pickguard, truss rod, and input jack covers and decided to lightly sand them with high grit sandpaper. This gave them a more matte finish that I really liked. After the guitar had been refinished, it was time to install the hardware. I decided to replace all of the original hardware except for the fret wire and the bridge post receivers. Starting at the top of the guitar, I installed new vintage style tuners with this slightly greenish tint. I had designed a Gibson font logo for the headstock, but I've yet to get around adding that to the guitar. Next, I installed a Tusk Nut, which I needed to shape both width and length with careful sanding. I was sure to count the strokes needed to shape each side of the nut as to evenly remove the material. This required carefully removing the original nut as well. For pickup, I decided to go with the Seymour Duncan Fat Cat, for I had yet to own any guitars with P90 pickup. I also believed that Les Paul Jr.'s traditionally came with the P90, so it was fitting. Lastly, this Epiphone model was routed for a normal humbucker, which the Fat Cat is designed to fit into. While installing the new pickup, I'd also installed all new wiring, including pots and caps, with new knobs as well. Below the pickup, I installed a new bridge. I didn't like the look of the original bridge and replaced it with one with adjustable saddles. In hindsight, this wasn't necessary, but I like how the replacement looks, and was lucky that the posts that came with it matched the threading on the existing inserts. I equipped this guitar with strap blocks. This is the first guitar that I've owned that have them. I like them, but have since found little rubber rings sold by Fender that seem to work almost as well on guitars with normal strap buttons. Originally, I planned on not using a pickguard. In my opinion, a nicely finished Les Paul looks way better without one. But as the guitar was nearing completion, I decided to reinstall the pickguard to see what it looked like. I had a bunch of gold screws left over from the original Kuta Kustom build, and I used those. I ended up loving the look of this guitar with the pickguard on, enough that I have yet to take it off. Along with a Kuta headstock logo, I'd also ordered the Les Paul Custom Diamond as a sticker. I failed at placing it well, and didn't like how the silver looked on the natural finished headstock. I took off most of the diamond, but left the center bar for now. And that's all there is to it. The story of how I spent many hours and dollars upgrading a guitar that originally cost me under $90. I wanted to create this video to document the process and share the results, as I couldn't find anything similar when researching the project. At the time of creating this video, the guitar has been completed for about 6 months or so. I'd be happy to answer any questions about the build process. Thank you for watching.